Have you ever looked at your life and wondered, how do I let go of the pain that no one sees? How do I find peace when everything inside me feels like chaos? If you've asked those questions, you're not broken. You're simply human. And maybe, just maybe, you're starting to awaken. In this video, we're not offering quick fixes or spiritual cliches. We're exploring something deeper, the journey of inner healing through the lens of Buddhist wisdom. We'll talk about why suffering isn't your enemy, how letting go isn't weakness, but love in its most courageous form, and how healing isn't about becoming someone new, it's about returning to the wholeness that was always yours. So take a breath, make some space. This isn't just a video, it's an invitation to come home to yourself. Let's begin. The question of pain and healing. Have you ever been in a room that felt too quiet? You're lying there, maybe late at night, staring at the ceiling. The world outside keeps spinning, busy, bright, full of noise. But inside, everything feels still, almost hollow, as if the silence has weight, as if the walls are slowly closing in. And there's this ache, not sharp, not loud, just always there, lingering like a fog. You scroll through your phone, you check messages, you search for something, someone, anything to ease the emptiness. But even if you're surrounded by people, the emptiness doesn't leave. Why is that? It's easy to believe that pain comes from what's missing, a person, a relationship, a sense of purpose. But what if that's only half the truth? What if the pain doesn't just come from what's gone, but from what we're still holding on to? Old expectations, unanswered hopes, versions of ourselves we thought we had to be. Sometimes we cling so tightly to what once was, or what we thought should be, that we don't even realize how much it's hurting us. We wait, hoping someone will show up and fix it, hoping someone will say, "It's okay now, you're safe, you can rest." We grow up with this quiet longing that someone outside of us will make the pain go away. But what if that person never comes? And here's the real question. What if they were never meant to? What if the one person who has the power to heal you has been here the entire time? Not out there in the world, but here, right where you are, breathing in the same room, living behind your eyes, waiting patiently for you to turn inward. We don't talk about this enough. We're taught to be strong, to move on, to stay positive. But deep healing doesn't happen through distraction or denial. It doesn't come from waiting. It comes from facing ourselves, with honesty, with gentleness, with presence. Think about a child learning to walk. She stumbles, scrapes her knee, and looks up, unsure, maybe even afraid. If no one rushes to her side, she might pause, take a breath, then stand again. But if someone scoops her up too quickly, tells her not to cry, she might believe she can't handle the fall, that she needs someone else to rescue her from every wound. And maybe that's what we've been taught too, to believe that healing is something that happens to us, something others give us. But healing doesn't come from being rescued. It comes from remembering that you're capable of standing on your own. The Buddha once said, "No one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path." That's not meant to feel like abandonment. It's meant to awaken your power. Because yes, pain is real, loneliness is real, but so is your strength. So is your inner light. So let me ask you something simple but honest. What are you still holding on to that's no longer holding you? Who were you still waiting for to come and save you? And what would happen if you stopped waiting? This video isn't here to offer shallow comfort. It's here to walk with you, through the questions, through the silence, through the places you've been avoiding. Because healing isn't about returning to who you once were. It's about becoming who you really are. And maybe, just maybe, that journey begins not with more answers, but with one quiet, sacred decision: to stop running from yourself and to finally come home. Part 1. The Buddhist View on Suffering and Healing. Title: You are not broken, you are just holding on too tightly. Let's take a breath together. A deep one, in through the nose and out slowly. Now feel that moment, just that moment. Let me ask you something simple but powerful. What are you clinging to right now? A person? An old version of yourself? A story you've been repeating in your mind for years? You see, according to Buddhist wisdom, suffering doesn't come from what happens to us. It doesn't even come from pain itself. It comes from attachment, from the way we hold on, from the way we refuse to let go, even when it's hurting us. We attach to expectations. We build futures in our minds and cling to how things should have turned out. We tie our happiness to someone staying, or something working, or the world approving of who we are. And when those things shift, fall apart, or disappear, as they inevitably do, we don't just feel loss, we feel broken. But here's the truth, one that may take time to really believe. You are not broken. You are not damaged goods. You are simply human. And humans, by nature, hold on, especially when we're scared, especially when we've been hurt. But healing begins the moment we realize that pain doesn't arise from loss. It arises from our resistance to loss. Pain is natural. Suffering is optional. Think of this. Imagine holding a rope tightly in your hands. You're pulling with all your strength, trying to keep something or someone close. But they're pulling away. They're drifting. And the tighter you grip, the more your hands burn. The rope is digging into your skin, and still you won't let go. Why? Because something inside you says, if I let go, I'll lose everything. But maybe letting go isn't the loss. Maybe it's the beginning of relief. Buddhism teaches that all things are impermanent. Relationships shift. Jobs change. People evolve. Even the way we feel about ourselves changes over time. But we often treat impermanence like an enemy, fighting it, resisting it, refusing to accept that nothing stays the same. And that's where suffering is born, in our refusal to let life flow as it naturally does. We say things like, I thought they'd always be there. I should have done more. Why did this happen to me? And we loop those thoughts like a song on repeat, building a world inside our minds where we try to rewrite the past. But the more we replay it, the deeper the sorrow becomes. The more tightly we hold on, the heavier the grief grows. Here's a story from the Buddhist tradition that beautifully illustrates this. A man once came to the Buddha, heartbroken. He had lost his son and couldn't stop suffering. The Buddha told him, "Bring me a mustard seed from a household that has never known sorrow, and I will bring your son back." So the man went house to house. But every single home had known death, heartbreak, or loss. And finally, the man returned, realizing suffering is not a punishment, it's part of being human. But the pain becomes unbearable when we believe we're the only ones holding it. So many of us walk through life carrying invisible weights. We look around, thinking everyone else has it all together. But behind every smile, every polished post, every "I'm fine," there's a story, a scar, a wound. You are not alone in your pain. But more importantly, you are not defined by it. When we cling, it's because we believe that what we've lost was the source of our peace. That a person, a job, a moment, a version of ourselves held all our happiness. And that's the illusion. Real peace doesn't come from anything that can be taken away. Real peace is born when we release the grip. It's born the moment we stop saying, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" It's in the breath you take after the crying stops. It's in the silence that follows heartbreak. It's in the stillness that remains when everything else falls away. That's where you meet yourself. Not the version of you who was trying to please everyone. Not the version who needed constant reassurance. Not the one chasing approval or love or closure. But the real you. The one who knows how to sit with discomfort. The one who learns how to let go, gently. The one who's beginning to understand. Healing isn't about going back to who you were. It's about becoming who you're meant to be, on the other side of letting go. So today, maybe just try this. Instead of asking, how do I stop hurting? Ask, what am I still holding on to? And then ask, what would happen if I just released it? Not all at once, not forever, just for a moment. Take a deep breath. Imagine setting that rope down, not because you're giving up, but because you're choosing peace. This is the first step on the path of true healing. Not fixing, not forgetting, but gently loosening the grip and remembering you were never broken. You were just holding on too tightly. Let's continue this journey together.
Part 2. The Practice of Presence. Title: Now is where healing begins. Take a moment with me. Just sit right where you are. Let your shoulders relax. Feel the weight of your body supported by the ground beneath you. And now, take a slow, deep breath in and gently let it go. That breath, that moment, that's where healing begins. You see, most of us spend our lives anywhere but here. Our bodies are in the present, but our minds, they're time travelers. They dart between the ghosts of yesterday and the fears of tomorrow, replaying old conversations, rehearsing what-ifs, worrying about what's next. And somewhere in that storm, we lose touch with the only place life is actually happening, this moment. The present isn't just a pause between the past and the future. It is the only place where transformation is possible. Healing does not live in memory. It does not wait for you in some imagined future. It lives right here. But how often do we miss it? We eat while checking our phones. We walk while thinking about work. We sit with loved ones but aren't truly with them. We're still lost in our heads. The Buddha taught that mindfulness, true embodied presence, is the path out of suffering. Not by escaping the moment, but by entering it more deeply. Let me ask you, when was the last time you truly felt your breath? Not just noticed it, but felt it. The coolness as it enters, the warmth as it leaves, the rise and fall of your chest like waves on a calm sea. This is not a luxury. This is not spiritual fluff. This is medicine. Because when you're present, the mind stops spinning. You're no longer at war with what was. You're no longer running from what could be. You are simply here. And in that here-ness, there's peace. Let me give you a metaphor that helps. Imagine your mind as a glass of muddy water, swirled with worry, memory, fear, and regret. If you keep shaking the glass, the water stays murky. But if you place it down and let it be still, eventually the mud settles and clarity returns. Presence is that stillness. It's not about perfection. It's not about having no thoughts. It's about becoming the observer instead of the reactor. The next time anxiety creeps in, pause. Ask yourself, what is real in this moment? Not the imagined scenario, not the old story, but right now. Maybe you'll notice the feeling of your feet on the floor. Maybe you'll hear the sound of birds outside. Maybe all you'll feel is your heart beating steadily, reminding you that you're still here. And that's enough. Presence doesn't mean you ignore your past or deny your future. It means you stop letting them control your peace. Because here's the truth. The past is a place of reference, not residence. The future is a space of possibility, not prediction. But the present is your power. Let me share a personal story. Years ago, I went through a season of deep emotional pain. I kept replaying conversations, wishing I had said things differently. I kept projecting into the future, terrified of what might unfold. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus, and even when life offered beauty, I couldn't feel it. Then one day, someone simply asked, "What if you came back to now?" And something shifted. It wasn't dramatic. There were no fireworks. But I sat quietly. I breathed. And for the first time in weeks, I felt peace. Not because my life had changed, but because I had changed the way I met the moment. That's the heart of mindfulness. It's not about control. It's about connection. When you're truly present, you're no longer running. You're no longer reaching. You're simply allowing. Allowing life to be what it is. Allowing yourself to feel without drowning. Allowing each breath to remind you you're alive. And maybe that's more than enough. You don't have to be anywhere else. You don't have to be anyone else. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to return. Again and again, as many times as it takes. To this breath, to this body, to this now. Let's try it again, just for a moment. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. Take one deep breath in and slowly let it out. Notice what's here, not what's missing, not what's next, just what's here. That's presence. That's healing. That's the first step out of suffering. As Thich Nhat Hanh once said, the present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. So today, I invite you to be attentive. Not perfectly, not constantly, but gently, intentionally. Feel the ground under your feet. Taste your food. Look into someone's eyes without a screen in between. And when your mind wanders, as it always will, just smile and bring it home. Because home isn't a place, it's presence. And every time you come back to now, you come back to yourself. Let's keep walking this path, one breath at a time.
Part 3. The Paradox of Letting Go. Title: Why Holding On Hurts More. Let me ask you something that might sound simple, but stay with it for a moment. What are you still carrying that no longer serves you? An old betrayal? A memory that replays like a movie scene you can't pause? Words someone said to you years ago that still echo in your mind like they were spoken yesterday? It's strange, isn't it? How something that happened once can live inside us for so long. Not because it keeps happening, but because we keep holding it. We think we're protecting ourselves, but really, we're burning. There's an old teaching from the Buddha that goes something like this. Imagine someone throws a hot coal at you. It burns, yes, but only for a moment. But if you catch it, if you hold it tight, believing you have to carry it, then the pain isn't just sharp, it's ongoing. And the longer you grip it, the deeper it burns. That's the paradox of suffering. It's not what happened that hurts us most. It's how tightly we hold on to it. We think letting go is weakness. We're told that forgiveness is soft, that moving on means we've given up. But what if that's backwards? What if letting go is the strongest thing you can do? You see, there's a voice inside most of us that says, if I let this go, I'm letting them off the hook. If I forgive, I'm saying it didn't matter. If I move on, I'm erasing what happened. But none of that is true. Letting go doesn't mean the pain never happened. It means you're ready to stop reliving it. You're ready to stop building your identity around the wound.
You're ready to love yourself more than the story that keeps you in chains. Let's pause for a moment. Close your eyes if it's safe to do so. Take a slow breath in, and as you breathe out, imagine dropping something heavy, just for this moment. A name, a grudge, a regret. What do you feel? Relief? Sadness? Fear? Whatever arises, that's okay, because this is deep work, and you're not alone in it. I once met someone who described his pain like a backpack full of rocks. Each rock was something he carried: a divorce, a childhood wound, the guilt of not saying goodbye. He said, "I've carried this for so long, I don't even remember what it feels like to walk without it." And I asked him, what if today you took out just one? Just one. Letting go doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it starts with a single breath, a single choice, a quiet decision that says, "I don't want to suffer like this anymore." The ego hates this. It wants to hold on to pain because pain feels powerful. It makes us feel righteous. It gives us a reason to keep walls up. But healing doesn't live in walls. It lives in open hands. When we cling, we confuse pain with protection. We think, if I remember the hurt, I'll never be hurt like that again. But that's not safety. That's a prison. True safety comes when you learn to trust yourself. When you realize that your worth isn't defined by who hurt you. When you begin to believe that peace is not something someone else gives you, it's something you choose. Letting go isn't forgetting. It's not pretending you're okay when you're not. It's not bypassing grief. It's saying, I have felt this pain fully. I have honored it, and now I choose to release it. Because your past may have shaped you, but it does not have to keep shaping you. One of the most powerful acts of self-love is to stop rehearsing the wound and start remembering your wholeness. I want to offer you a gentle visualization. Imagine standing by a flowing river. In your hands, you hold a stone. This stone represents something you've been holding: a person, a memory, a version of yourself. It's heavy. You've carried it for years. It's become familiar, even comforting in its weight. But today, you lean forward, you place it in the river, and you watch it float, then sink and disappear into the current. You are still you, but now lighter. The river keeps flowing, and so can you. This is not about pretending life hasn't hurt you. This is about choosing not to let it keep hurting you over and over again. It takes courage to let go. It takes trust. And yes, it takes practice. Some days you'll feel free. Other days you'll want to pick the stone back up. That's okay. The path of healing is not a straight line. It's a spiral. And each time you return to the pain, you meet it with more wisdom, more softness, more strength. So today, ask yourself, what am I still holding and why? And then, what would it feel like? Just begin to let it go. You deserve peace. You deserve lightness. You deserve to walk through life without the weight of the past clinging to your shoulders. Letting go isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of something else. The beginning of breath. The beginning of healing. The beginning of you free. So, are you ready? Let's take one more deep breath and gently release. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're just learning how to loosen your grip. And that is an act of love.
Part 4. The 4 Steps of Inner Healing. Title: How to Heal Gently, One Breath at a Time. Let's begin with something simple, but powerful: a breath. Go ahead, right now. Breathe in, slowly, deeply. And exhale, gently, completely. Feel that? That's not just air moving in and out of your lungs. That's you coming home. Sometimes we think healing requires a grand transformation, a perfect plan, a big realization, or a spiritual breakthrough.
But often, the first step, the most important one, is simply this: come back to yourself. And how do we do that? Through the breath. Step 1. Breathe into the present moment. When your mind spins with worry, when your heart feels heavy with regret, when you feel like you're floating outside your own life, breathe. Not to escape, not to fix, but to remember, I am here. I am alive. I am safe right now. The breath is your anchor. It doesn't argue with the past. It doesn't beg for the future. It simply reminds you, this is real. And the more you return to your breath, the more space you create around the pain. You begin to realize healing isn't about erasing the hurt. It's about learning how to hold it differently. Which brings us to step 2. Identify what you're holding on to. Because healing can't happen until we name what's weighing us down. So ask yourself, gently, with compassion, what am I still clinging to? Maybe it's a person who left. Maybe it's the version of yourself that you thought you'd be by now. Maybe it's a belief, I'm not good enough. I'll never be okay. Or maybe it's a quiet but persistent hope that something, anything, will go back to how it once was. Whatever it is, don't judge it, just notice it. Awareness is the beginning of release. We all carry attachments, and many of them were born from love, not weakness. We held on because we cared, because we were afraid, because we didn't know another way. But now you do. Which brings us to step 3. Observe the pain without judgment. This part is hard, because most of us have been trained to either suppress pain or drown in it. But what if you did neither? What if, instead of running from it, you just sat with it? Like a kind witness, like a friend holding space. You don't need to label your emotions as good or bad. You don't need to solve them. You don't need to get rid of them. You simply need to allow them. Let the sadness rise. Let the anger hum beneath the surface. Let the fear be there without needing to make it disappear. Just watch. Because emotions are like clouds. They come, they change, they pass. And the more you observe without feeding them, the more you realize you are not your pain. You are the sky that holds it. This leads us to the final and perhaps most powerful step. Let go of the story. Let go of the loop you've been stuck in, the narrative that replays in your mind. I was abandoned. I always mess things up. No one ever chooses me. I'm not enough. You see, pain is temporary, but the story we tell ourselves about that pain, that's what lingers. That's what becomes our prison. We become so attached to our suffering that we don't know who we are without it. We wrap it around our identity like armor, not realizing it's also keeping us from healing. But here's a gentle truth. You are not your story. You are the awareness that sees the story. You are the space in which that story unfolds. And at any moment, you can stop telling it. That doesn't mean denying what happened. It means reclaiming your power from what happened. It means writing a new sentence, a new paragraph, a new chapter. Here's how you begin. You wake up, take a deep breath, and say, I am not who I was when that pain occurred, and I do not have to live in that moment forever. You begin to speak to yourself with more kindness. You notice when you fall into old patterns, and instead of shame, you offer yourself understanding. This is the path of real healing, not fixing yourself, not becoming someone new, but returning to who you were before the world told you otherwise. Let's recap the 4 steps together. Simply, breathe. Return to the present moment. This is your foundation. Recognize. Identify what you're attached to, what you're still holding. Observe. Sit with your pain without judgment. Let it be and let it move. Release the story. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are free to write something new. These aren't just steps. They are practices. They are invitations. They are acts of quiet courage. And the beautiful thing, you don't have to do them perfectly. You just have to begin. One breath, one insight, one moment of awareness at a time. So if today all you can do is take one mindful breath, that's enough. If today you name one thing that's been weighing on your heart, that's enough. If today you stop even for 10 seconds and say, I don't have to believe this story anymore, that's more than enough. Healing isn't linear. It's not always graceful, but it is always possible when you meet yourself with gentleness. So take a breath with me now. Inhale, exhale. And remember, you are already on your way home.
Part 5, The Roots of Suffering. Title, What Are You Still Carrying? Sit with me for a moment. Close your eyes if that feels safe. Take a slow breath in and gently let it go. Now ask yourself, honestly, quietly, what am I still carrying? Is it something someone once said to you? A moment you wish you could undo? A version of yourself you no longer are but can't quite release? You see, most of us try to heal by trimming the surface. We cut the leaves of stress. We prune the branches of anxiety. We try new habits, new affirmations, new routines. But still, the ache returns. Why? Because the roots of our suffering are still buried, deep beneath the surface, where we don't always look. And like a tree poisoned at its base, no matter how beautifully we tend to the top, if the roots remain toxic, we cannot thrive. So today, we're not going to talk about the surface. We're going deeper. Because real healing isn't cosmetic, it's courageous. It means facing what's been buried, the memories you've avoided, the words you tell yourself late at night, the quiet expectations that whisper, you should be further by now, or you were never enough. Let's start here. Your roots are your beliefs, your emotional inheritance, your inner narrative. Maybe it started in childhood, when someone made you feel unseen. Maybe it was in a relationship where your worth was questioned. Maybe it was one moment, a mistake, a loss, a silence that somehow became part of your identity. But no matter where it came from, if it lives inside you now, it's shaping the way you see everything. Have you ever walked into a room and assumed you didn't belong? Or hesitated to speak because, what if they don't like me? Or pushed people away because you already expected them to leave? These aren't just thoughts. They're roots, woven into your nervous system, reinforced by time, made invisible through habit. But here's the truth. They don't have to stay. You are not the soil you were planted in. You are the one who can choose to replant yourself, to nourish new beliefs, to pull out the roots that no longer serve your growth. But first, you have to name them. So let's pause again. Take a breath. Ask yourself gently, what story from the past is still growing inside me? Maybe it's, I'm always the one who gets left behind. Or, I have to prove I'm worth loving. Or even just, if I let go of the pain, I won't know who I am anymore. These stories can become so familiar we forget they're not facts. They're not the truth. They're just patterns, echoes of an old wound still asking to be seen. And here's the beautiful thing. What is seen can be healed. But it has to be seen completely. Not judged, not rushed, not buried again, but witnessed with compassion. This is what inner work truly is. It's not glamorous. It's not always graceful, but it is sacred. It's sitting with the young parts of yourself that are still waiting for kindness. It's facing the memory, not to relive it, but to release it. It's saying to yourself with full presence, I see you. I understand why you've been hurting, and I'm ready now to let this go. One of the greatest illusions of suffering is that we think we need to fix the present when what's really hurting is the past. We try to change jobs, change partners, change environments, but we bring the same wounded roots with us.
and the same patterns reappear. Not because life is punishing us, but because life is trying to show us where healing still lives. There's a story in Buddhism about a man struck by an arrow. Instead of removing it, he demands to know who shot it, what was their intent, what kind of arrow is it? But all the while, the arrow remains lodged in his chest, and he keeps suffering. This is us when we refuse to go inward, when we keep analyzing, blaming, distracting, instead of pulling out the root. So I'll ask again, what is your arrow? What memory, belief, or expectation is still piercing you beneath the surface? You don't need to answer right away, but you do need to listen. Because once you hear it, truly hear it, you can begin to release it. Not by force, not by pretending it didn't hurt, but by letting it go with love. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean erasing the past. It means changing your relationship to it. It means saying, "This shaped me, yes, but it no longer defines me." That's when the roots start to loosen. That's when the poison begins to leave the soil. And that's when new life can grow. So if today, all you do is name one old belief, one quiet ache you've been carrying, and say to yourself, "This is not who I am anymore," that's enough. Because healing doesn't happen in a single day. It happens in the quiet choices we make daily. To pause, to breathe, to look inward instead of outward, to question what we've always believed, and to trust that who we are becoming is worth the discomfort of letting go. So take one more breath and ask with courage, what am I still carrying that I no longer need? Let the answer come. Then gently let it move through you. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day you'll wake up and realize you feel lighter, because what once lived in your roots has finally been set free.
Part 6. The Monk's Lesson. Title: Are You Still Carrying What's Already Gone? Let's begin with a story. It's one you may have heard before, but today I want you to hear it differently. Two monks were traveling together, walking through the forest toward a distant monastery. Along their journey, they came across a river where a young woman stood hesitating at the edge, unable to cross. One of the monks, without hesitation, picked her up, carried her across the water, and gently set her down on the other side. The other monk was silent. Hours passed. The forest path was quiet except for the sound of footsteps and the rustle of leaves, but something was clearly stirring in the second monk's mind. Eventually, he broke the silence. "You know we're not supposed to touch women," he said. "Why did you do that?" The first monk smiled gently and replied, "Brother, I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" Let that sink in for a moment. Because the truth is, we're all still carrying things we thought we let go of long ago. A memory, a grudge, a mistake, a conversation we keep replaying, a version of ourselves we can't forgive. We think time has passed. We tell ourselves we've moved on, but deep down, we're still holding it. The body walks forward, but the heart stays stuck by the river. So let me ask you, gently, what are you still carrying? What moment, what person, what judgment or regret still follows you like a shadow, even though it's long gone? You see, this story about the monks isn't really about monks. It's about you. It's about me. It's about the mind's habit of attachment. Because we don't just live our lives, we carry them. We carry old arguments like they're still happening. We carry the absence of people who've left. We carry shame, guilt, resentment, as if they serve us, as if we're afraid to put them down. But here's what that monk teaches us. The suffering isn't in the moment itself. It's in our refusal to let the moment end. Think about how much energy you spend reliving something that cannot be changed. How often you've gone back, mentally, emotionally, to a place that no longer exists.
It's like dragging a suitcase through the present full of things that belong to yesterday. And the weight is exhausting. But the good news is you don't have to carry it forever. You can make a different choice. You can say, yes, that happened. Yes, it hurt. But it's over now, and I'm allowed to lay it down. Sometimes we confuse healing with forgetting. But the monk wasn't forgetting. He remembered. He simply chose not to carry what no longer served his path. That's wisdom. That's peace. But here's the challenge. Our minds are sticky. They want closure. They want answers. They want things to feel complete and fair and resolved. But life isn't always like that. Sometimes you don't get the apology. Sometimes the story ends too soon. Sometimes the person never comes back. Sometimes the version of you that lived that moment simply doesn't exist anymore. And that's okay. Because letting go isn't erasing. It's evolving. It's choosing to stop opening the same door that leads nowhere. It's no longer handing the present over to a past that can't be changed. You don't owe your pain your loyalty. Let me say that again. You don't owe your pain your loyalty. You don't have to keep nurturing the very thing that keeps you stuck. You can honor your past without dragging it through every day of your future. Think about this. If the first monk had kept holding the woman, would he have been able to walk freely? Would he have been able to climb the next hill? Would he have had the strength for the rest of the journey? Of course not. And neither can you. Your hands can't hold new joy if they're still gripping old wounds. Your heart can't beat freely if it's still weighed down by unfinished stories. So maybe today is the day, not to solve everything, not to make the pain disappear, but to gently begin loosening your grip. Maybe today is the day you stop rehearsing the past and start reclaiming the present. You are not what happened to you. You are not the person who left you. You are not the words they said. You are not the mistake you made when you didn't know better. You are the awareness that sees all of that and still chooses peace. You're allowed to say, I put that down already. I don't need to carry it anymore. And if your mind protests, because it will, if it says, but it's not fair, but I was hurt, but it mattered, gently tell your mind, yes, it mattered, but my peace matters more. This is not about spiritual bypassing. This is not about pretending. This is about maturing, about growing roots that go deeper than your wounds. It's about realizing that freedom doesn't come from fixing the past. It comes from releasing your grip on it. So take a breath with me now. Inhale. And as you exhale, imagine setting something down. Maybe it's small. Maybe it's been with you for years. You don't have to throw it away. Just set it down. Feel the ground beneath you. Feel the lightness return. You are not here to carry everything. You are here to walk, to grow, to become. And sometimes becoming means letting go of the things that kept you safe, but no longer keep you whole. The river is behind you. The road is ahead. And you, my friend, you are free to move forward. So tell me, what are you still carrying? And what might your life feel like if you finally put it down?
Part 7. The River Practice. Title: Let It Go, Let It Flow. A Practice for Inner Freedom. Let's take a pause together. Not to run, not to solve, not even to understand. Just to be. Because sometimes healing isn't about doing more. It's about releasing what we've carried for too long. And today, I want to offer you a gentle practice, a quiet invitation, not to change your entire life, but to take one small step toward freedom. It's called the River Practice. I want you to imagine something with me. You're standing at the edge of a river. The water is calm but steady, flowing gently past. It glimmers under the light, winding its way towards somewhere unknown. And in your hands, you're holding stones.
Each stone represents something you've been carrying. Maybe one is a heartbreak, another an old regret. One is a memory that still stings. One is something left unsaid. Another, an expectation that never came true. Feel their weight. Feel how heavy your arms have become. Now pause and ask yourself, what do I gain by carrying these? You see, we think holding on makes us strong. We think that if we keep remembering, we won't be hurt again, or that if we never let go, it proves how much it mattered. But the truth? Pain doesn't honor the past. Peace does. So now, one by one, I want you to begin releasing. Imagine taking the first stone, just one, and gently placing it in the river. Not throwing it, not with anger, just letting it go. Watch it sink. Watch the water carry it away, effortlessly, without resistance. Notice how your hand feels a little lighter. That's what letting go feels like. It's not a dramatic moment. It's not loud. It's not something you need to post about or explain. It's quiet, and it's quietly personal. The next stone may be harder. Maybe it's something you've carried for years. Maybe it's become part of who you think you are. But ask yourself, gently, does holding this help me or does it hold me? You deserve to walk lighter. You deserve to breathe deeper. And most importantly, you deserve to be free from things that no longer live here. Because the past is a place, not a prison. And the river, it doesn't ask for permission to flow. It doesn't hold on to what passes through. It receives and it releases. Just like we can. Let me share something I've learned over time. There's a kind of grief that doesn't scream. It whispers. It says, I don't know who I am without this pain. And in a strange way, the suffering becomes familiar, almost comforting. But freedom, true freedom, often begins with unfamiliar silence. The kind that makes space, the kind that invites something new. So maybe letting go isn't the end. Maybe it's the beginning. Maybe the space we fear is actually the place where peace begins to bloom. Maybe that ache in your chest is just your soul asking for room to breathe. Let's return to the river. Close your eyes for a moment if you'd like. Feel the breeze. Hear the soft rush of water. And in your hands, just one more stone. This one might be heavy. It might carry someone else's voice, someone else's judgment. But look at it closely. Feel it in your palm. And ask, do I still need to carry this to be who I am? If the answer is no, gently place it into the water. No drama. No need to understand it all. Just trust that the river knows what to do. Watch it disappear beneath the surface. And now, notice how your breath moves more freely, how your shoulders feel just a little more at ease, how your heart, maybe for the first time in a while, has just a little more space. That's not magic. That's not a trick. That's the beginning of inner freedom. You don't have to carry every wound forever. You don't have to hold every story in your body like it's your identity. You can still remember. You can still honor what was. But you don't need to suffer to prove it mattered. What's meant for you will never require you to stay heavy. Here's something to reflect on. The river never stops flowing. It doesn't fight the rocks. It doesn't resist the fallen branches. It simply moves around, through, forward. And so can you. So today, maybe you don't let go of everything. Maybe not every stone sinks today. Maybe some are too close, too tender. That's okay. But if you can let go of even one, if you can say, I don't need to carry this anymore, then you've taken a sacred step. You've chosen peace over protection, freedom over fear, presence over the past. So as we close, I invite you to return to this practice anytime. Stand at the edge of the river, real or imagined. Hold what needs holding, and when you're ready, let it go. The water will always be there. It will always know how to carry what you no longer need. All you have to do is open your hands.
Part 8. The Cost of Clinging. Title: The Hidden Price of Holding On Too Tightly. Let's start with a quiet question. What or who have you given your peace to? Think about it. Is your sense of peace tied to someone calling you back? To a relationship working out? To a job going a certain way? To someone approving of who you are? If the answer is yes, then you're not alone. Because most of us at some point have done this. We've handed our happiness to something or someone outside of us, and then wondered why we feel anxious when they leave, or change, or simply don't show up the way we hoped. This is the cost of clinging, and it runs deeper than we think. You see, clinging doesn't always look like desperation. Sometimes it looks like waiting for a message, or checking their page one more time. Sometimes it looks like telling ourselves, "I'll be okay," once they come back, or once this thing goes the way I need it to. But here's the hard truth we often avoid. When you place your peace in something you cannot control, you sign a contract with suffering. Because everything external, everything, is temporary. People evolve. Plans fall apart. What once felt certain begins to shift. And if your sense of worth, calm, or identity is wrapped up in what's outside of you, then even the smallest change can shake your world. Have you ever felt that? That ache, that emptiness when someone pulled away, not just because they left, but because they took a piece of your peace with them. That's what clinging does. It convinces us that our well-being lives in someone else's hands. And when they drop it, intentionally or not, we feel lost, as if we've lost ourselves. But here's something worth remembering. Happiness that depends on control isn't happiness. It's a form of fear. We hold tightly because we're afraid. Afraid to feel empty, afraid to face uncertainty, afraid to be with ourselves. But what if that fear isn't telling the truth? What if letting go doesn't leave you empty, but finally makes room for something real? Let me ask you this. What would your life feel like if your peace didn't depend on anything outside of you? Not on how someone loves you, not on how someone leaves, not on the world going your way. What if your peace was yours, unshakable, untouchable, no matter what changed around you? That's not a fantasy. That's freedom. And it begins with one realization. You are the source. Not your partner, not your career, not your parents' approval, not the past version of you who never made mistakes. You, right here, right now. You are the source of your calm, your joy, your clarity. And the moment you stop outsourcing your well-being is the moment you take your power back. Now, that doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you live in some cold, detached way. It means you love freely, without making someone else responsible for your happiness. It means you walk with purpose, without letting outcomes define your worth. It means you show up fully, without handing over the key to your peace. This is what the Buddha meant when he said, "Attachment is the root of suffering." Not because love is bad, not because connection is wrong, but because clinging to what cannot be controlled is like building a house on a riverbank, then panicking when the current shifts. The current will always shift. So build your foundation inside. Build it in the stillness that's already within you, in the breath that doesn't ask permission, in the awareness that watches everything rise and fall and stay centered anyway. Let me share something personal. There was a time when I attached my peace to someone's presence. When they were near, I felt whole. When they drifted, I felt like I was unraveling. I wasn't in love with them. I was in dependency. I had handed over my light and wondered why I felt dim. And it wasn't until I sat in stillness and faced that ache and asked myself, what am I actually afraid of? That I realized I wasn't afraid of losing them. I was afraid of meeting myself in the quiet. But in that quiet, I found something priceless. A peace that wasn't waiting on anyone. A joy that didn't need conditions. A me that had always been there. And from that place, I could love again.
Not from fear, not from emptiness, but from fullness. And that love, it's so much more beautiful because it's not trying to grasp, it's simply trying to give. So today, I invite you to ask yourself, where have I placed my peace? And can I gently begin to bring it back home? Not all at once, not with pressure, but maybe with one breath, one reminder, one small step back into your own center. Because no matter how the world moves, how people show up or don't, you can be steady. You can be free. Not because everything around you is predictable, but because you've learned to stop clinging. You've learned to open your hands, to let life flow, to return to the only thing that never leaves, yourself. So let's breathe into that now. Inhale. Feel your chest rise. Exhale. Feel what's loosening, what's softening. You are safe. You don't need to hold on so tightly anymore. You don't need anyone else to carry your peace. It was always yours. It still is.
Part 9. Love Without Possession. Title: If You Truly Love Them, Let Them Be Free. Let me ask you something that may challenge how you've always seen love. Can you love without needing to own? It's a strange question, isn't it? Because most of us were taught that love is about holding on, about being chosen, about forever. We learned that love means promises, labels, definitions. And somewhere along the way, we confused love with possession. But what if real love, deep, awakened love, has nothing to do with control? What if it has everything to do with presence and freedom? Let me offer you an image, one that I return to often when my heart feels tight or afraid of losing something beautiful. The sky does not try to hold the clouds, and yet the clouds still pass through. They belong to no one, and yet they are part of everything. Love is the same. When we try to hold it too tightly, it escapes. But when we soften our grip, it can breathe. You see, control often comes from fear. Fear of losing, fear of being forgotten, fear that without the other person, we'll collapse. So we start to manage. We overthink. We seek constant reassurance. We want answers, labels, guarantees. But love is not a transaction. It is not a contract. It is not a cage. Real love doesn't say, "You're mine." It says, "You're free, and I'm still here." Can you feel the difference? Have you ever had someone love you, not because they needed something from you, but simply because your existence mattered to them? It's rare, but when it happens, it changes everything. And maybe, more importantly, have you ever given that kind of love? The kind that asks nothing, but offers everything. Not because you're trying to earn anything, but because giving love is the joy. Here's a quiet truth we rarely speak. The need to control comes from a wound, but the ability to release comes from wholeness. When we are at peace with ourselves, we no longer need to manage the behavior of others to feel safe. We don't need constant affirmation to know we matter. We don't need to be chosen every day to believe we are lovable. We simply are. And from that inner steadiness, love flows effortlessly. It becomes a gift, not a demand, a presence, not a performance, a mirror, not a leash. Think of someone you love right now, not abstractly. Really picture them. Ask yourself honestly, do I love them for who they are? Or do I love how they make me feel? That's a hard question, but a necessary one. Because often, what we call love is simply the comfort of familiarity, or the desire for security, or the relief of being seen. None of those things are wrong. But when we mistake them for love, we start building walls instead of bridges. We start controlling instead of connecting. And eventually, we lose the very thing we were afraid to let go of. So how do we love differently?
How do we love without needing to own? We start by trusting that love does not require possession to be real. We remember that love is like water. It's most powerful when it flows, not when it's frozen in place. We learn to let people be who they are, even when that includes distance, change, or uncertainty. And we begin to anchor ourselves not in their presence, but in our own wholeness. Let me offer you this. Imagine a bird perching on your hand. It sings, it rests, it trusts you. But the moment you close your fingers around it, even from love, even from fear of it flying away, you harm the very thing you're trying to protect. True love is the open hand. It's the willingness to let the bird come and go, to enjoy its presence while it's there, and to bless its flight when it's not. Because you understand, it was never yours to keep, only yours to witness. And in that witnessing, love becomes sacred. There's a quiet kind of courage in this way of loving. It's not flashy. It doesn't promise forever with desperate intensity, but it does something far more powerful. It sets both hearts free. And when you love someone with that kind of freedom, you give them the space to return, not because they're obligated, but because they want to. And if they don't, you're still whole. You're still grounded, because your love was never about having them. It was about being love. That's the shift. From needing to keep to learning to let be. From trying to control to choosing to trust. And in that space, love becomes what it was always meant to be. A force that uplifts, not limits. A presence that liberates, not contains. So if you're loving someone right now, whether they're close or far, whether you're together or growing apart, ask yourself, am I trying to possess them? Or am I learning to love them enough to let them be free? It's not easy. It's not always comfortable. But it's the path to love that doesn't break us. It's the path to love that returns us to ourselves. So take a breath with me now. Inhale. Feel into your chest, into your heart. Exhale. And imagine your love expanding, not tightening, not clinging, but widening like the sky. Because the sky doesn't hold the clouds, and yet the clouds still pass through. So may your love be wide. May it be kind. May it be free. And may you remember, what is meant for you will never need to be possessed. It will simply align.
Part 10. Mindfulness is the doorway to healing. Title: The present moment heals what time cannot. Let's begin with something simple, but not always easy. Take one slow, deep breath, and bring your attention, not to your thoughts, not to your to-do list, not even to your pain, but to the breath itself. Feel it. Now gently release it. This is where the healing begins. You see, most of our suffering doesn't live in the present moment. It lives in the memory of the past or the fear of the future. Think about it. When you're anxious, what are you usually afraid of? Something that hasn't happened yet. When you feel sorrow, what are you often grieving? Something that's already gone. Our bodies are here, but our minds are time travelers. They loop through old conversations, replay mistakes, worry about next week, plan for the unknown. And in doing so, we miss the only place healing can ever truly occur, right here, right now. This is where mindfulness becomes not just a practice, but a portal, a quiet doorway through which we step out of mental noise and into inner clarity. Mindfulness doesn't mean ignoring your pain. It means noticing it without becoming it. It means creating space around it so it no longer defines you. Have you ever watched clouds drift across the sky? They come and go. Some are heavy and dark, others light and wispy. But the sky doesn't cling to any of them. It just allows. That's what mindfulness teaches us to do with emotion.
to observe anger without becoming angry, to notice fear without being consumed by it, to see grief without drowning in it. It invites us to become the sky, vast, aware, untouched by the passing weather. Because feelings are not facts. They are visitors. They pass through when we don't resist. But the moment we fight them, the moment we try to suppress, fix, or control what we feel, we become entangled. We hold on, we tighten, and that's when pain turns into suffering. Mindfulness is the gentle art of loosening that grip, not by force, but by presence. Let me share something personal. There was a time in my life when anxiety felt like my constant companion. I woke up tense. I planned my day trying to avoid discomfort. I replayed every conversation at night, wondering what I did wrong. And I kept thinking, if only I could solve this one thing, I'd feel okay. But the more I chased peace in the future, the further it seemed to drift. Then one day, during a meditation, something shifted. A teacher said, "You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that sees them." I didn't fully understand it at first, but I stayed with it. And slowly, I began to see. I didn't need to fix my thoughts. I just needed to see them clearly, without judgment. And when I did, they began to lose their power. That's the quiet miracle of mindfulness. It doesn't make your life perfect, it makes it real. And in that realness, you find peace. Not the peace of having no problems, but the peace of meeting yourself in this moment, fully, kindly, without escape. So, how do we practice this? It doesn't have to be complicated. It starts with just 3 words. Pause, breathe, notice. Pause when the mind wants to run. Breathe into the body. Notice what's here. No fixing, no judging, no analyzing. Just noticing. Maybe it's tightness in your chest. Maybe it's sadness behind your eyes. Maybe it's nothing at all, and that's okay too. Because mindfulness isn't about achieving something. It's about coming home, again and again. Even if your thoughts wander 1,000 times, each time you come back is a moment of healing. One breath, one sensation, one now. The Buddha often described mindfulness as the path that leads from suffering to liberation, not by removing what's painful, but by transforming our relationship to it. You become the witness, the compassionate observer. You begin to see, this thought is not me. This fear is not permanent. This sadness is not who I am. And in that seeing, you soften. You stop fighting your experience. And strangely enough, that's when it begins to shift. There's a Zen saying I love, let go or be dragged. When we resist what is, we get dragged through it. When we allow it, we find we can float through it with more grace. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, don't try to escape the moment. Enter it more deeply. Sit with it. Feel the breath in your belly. Place your hand on your heart if it helps. And just ask gently, what is here right now? You might be surprised at the answer. Because sometimes, beneath the fear, there's tenderness. Beneath the anger, there's grief. Beneath it all, there's just a part of you asking to be seen. And when you see it, without turning away, you give that part the love it's been waiting for. That's the heart of healing. Not changing who you are, but remembering who you've always been, beneath the noise, beneath the stories, beneath the scars. So, let's come back again, right now. Take a deep breath. Let it rise, let it fall. Notice the space around you. Notice the silence beneath these words. And remember, you don't need to go anywhere else to heal. You just need to be here, fully, gently, mindfully. This moment is not perfect, but it is whole. And so are you.
Part 11. Healing is not fixing, it's accepting. Title: You don't need to be fixed, you just need to be met. Let's begin with a simple shift in perspective. What if your pain isn't a problem to be solved?
What if it's simply a part of you asking to be held? We live in a world obsessed with fixing. Fix your mindset, fix your body, fix your emotions. We treat healing like a repair job, as if our wounds are broken parts that need to be replaced. But what if healing isn't about changing anything? What if true healing begins the moment you stop trying to escape yourself? Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of the ocean after a storm. The waves are still, the sky is quiet. The water hasn't disappeared, but it's settled. And now you can see the depths again. That's what happens when we stop running from our pain. It doesn't vanish, it transforms. Not because we forced it to go away, but because we finally stopped fighting it. Most of us grow up learning that hard emotions are bad. Sadness means you're weak. Anger means you've lost control. Grief means you're stuck in the past. So we bury them. We distract ourselves. We perform happiness, hoping no one sees the storm inside. But buried pain doesn't dissolve. It waits, and it whispers, "Will you see me now?" Here's a truth many people never hear. Healing is not about changing what you feel. It's about changing how you relate to what you feel. Let me say that again. It's not the feeling itself that causes lasting suffering. It's the way we resist it. When you feel anxious and then judge yourself for feeling anxious, you're adding a second layer of suffering. When you feel sadness, but then scold yourself for being too emotional, you're creating a war within your own heart. What if you could pause that war? What if you could sit beside your pain like you would with a friend who's hurting? No advice, no fixing, just presence. There's something profoundly healing about being met exactly as you are, without agenda. And the person who needs to do that for you is you. One of the most powerful things I ever heard from a Buddhist teacher was this: treat your pain like a guest. Offer it tea. Listen to what it has to say. At first, that sounded strange to me. Why would I invite pain to stay longer? But over time, I realized, pain that is welcomed softens. Pain that is heard transforms. Think of a crying child. If you yell at them to stop crying, they cry harder. But if you hold them gently, they may still cry, but they'll feel safe doing it. Your emotions work the same way, and you can be that safe space for yourself. So what does this look like in daily life? It might be as simple as placing your hand on your heart when a difficult memory arises. Not to make it go away, but to say, "I see you, and I'm here." It might be noticing your breath when sadness visits, not pushing it away, but sitting with it like a quiet companion. It might be writing down your feelings without editing them or trying to make sense of them. This is not indulgence. This is acceptance. And acceptance is the ground from which real transformation begins. Because here's the paradox. The more we resist what we feel, the longer it lingers. But the moment we allow it, it starts to shift. Not overnight, not always in obvious ways, but something softens. It's like muddy water that becomes clear, not because you stir it harder, but because you stop stirring altogether. Stillness reveals clarity, and peace begins when we stop needing to be different than we are. I know this is easier said than done, especially if you've spent years trying to prove you're okay, trying to fix what others told you was wrong with you, trying to outrun the ache that never quite disappears. But what if, today, you just stopped running? What if, for just a moment, you looked at yourself not with criticism, but with compassion? What if the parts of you that hurt weren't signs of failure, but signs of being fully alive? Because to feel deeply is not a flaw. It is a form of wisdom. It means your heart is still open, still beating, still willing to care. And that is beautiful. So let me offer you this. You do not need to be fixed. You do not need to be more healed, more spiritual, more whole. You are not broken. You are simply human. And healing isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to the someone you already are, beneath the fear, beneath the judgment, beneath the story. Like the ocean after the storm, still vast, still powerful, still enough. So take a breath with me. Let it rise and fall. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your body as it is. Feel your presence, not as something to improve, but as something to embrace. This is where healing lives. Not in fixing, not in running, but in meeting yourself fully and kindly. Right here, right now, just as you are.
Part 12. Freedom from the Need for Validation. Title: You Are Not What They Think of You. Let me ask you something quietly honest. What happens inside you when someone praises you? Do you feel uplifted, more alive, more seen? And what about when someone disapproves of you? Do you shrink a little, question yourself, feel like you failed? Most of us are taught, in subtle and not so subtle ways, to build our self-worth on the reflections we see in others. We chase compliments. We fear criticism. And slowly, without realizing it, we hand our sense of peace over to the world around us. But here's the truth you might have forgotten. You don't need to be validated to be valuable. Let that sink in, because it's radical in a world that thrives on comparison, approval, and performance. You are not what others think of you. You are not what they say about you. You are not their praise or their silence. You are something deeper, something quieter, something unshakable. There's an old Zen story that I return to often. It goes like this. A monk once sat quietly under a tree, deep in meditation. A traveler passed by and, assuming the monk was lazy, began yelling at him, insulting his character, mocking his stillness. But the monk didn't respond. He remained calm. Eventually, the traveler stopped and asked, "Did you not hear me?" The monk opened his eyes gently and replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not receive it, to whom does the gift belong?" The traveler paused. "To the giver," he said. The monk smiled. "Exactly. I do not accept your words. They are not mine to carry." That story has stayed with me for years. Because how often do we carry what was never ours? How often do we accept someone's anger, judgment, or misunderstanding and treat it like it defines us? How often do we make their opinion our identity? And the same is true even with praise. We get addicted to being seen a certain way, to being liked, applauded, admired. But then, one day, someone doesn't clap, and suddenly we feel empty again. The problem isn't with appreciation. Appreciation is beautiful. We all want to feel seen. The problem is when our joy depends on it. Because when your worth relies on validation, your peace becomes fragile. It rises and falls with someone else's mood. It becomes a reflection, not a root. But you were not born to be a mirror. You were born to be the sky itself. Imagine this with me. There's a mountain, strong, unmoving, rooted. Now imagine people standing around the mountain. One says, "It's too cold." Another says, "It's majestic." Someone else says, "It's boring." But the mountain doesn't change. It doesn't lower itself for approval. It doesn't grow taller to be admired. It just is. You are that mountain. And validation, it's just the weather. Sometimes it's warm sunshine. Sometimes it's stormy clouds. But you remain. Here's something you might not have heard before. Freedom isn't the absence of judgment. Freedom is not needing judgment to determine who you are. That's real liberation. Not running from opinions, but seeing them for what they are. Passing winds, temporary noise, nothing more. So how do we step into this kind of freedom? It starts with noticing. Noticing the places where we compromise ourselves to be liked.
Noticing the moments when a stranger's comment ruins our whole day. Noticing how tightly we cling to being seen a certain way. And then, gently letting go. Letting go of the belief that someone else holds the key to your worth. Letting go of the idea that you need to be enough for someone else to feel whole. You were whole before anyone had an opinion about you. You are enough not because someone said so, but because you're here, breathing, being, becoming. When we realize that, something inside relaxes. We no longer chase approval like a thirsty traveler searching for water. Instead, we become the well. And from that well, love flows more freely, because we're no longer loving to be liked. We're loving because it's who we are. Imagine waking up tomorrow and no longer needing the world to approve of you. Imagine speaking, creating, living simply because it's your truth. That's not arrogance, that's authenticity. And the people who are meant to walk beside you, they will feel that truth, and they will stay, not because you performed, but because you were real. So today, if someone praises you, receive it, smile, and then let it go. And if someone criticizes you, listen if there's wisdom in it, but don't wear it like a name tag. Return to your breath, return to your heart, return to the deep place within you that already knows. I am not here to be accepted. I am here to be free. And in that freedom, ironically, you will shine even brighter. Because nothing glows more beautifully than a soul at peace with itself. Let's end with this simple truth. Your value was never up for debate. So stop handing it over to people who don't even know your story. Take it back. Hold it close. Live from it. And remember, you are not what they think of you. You are what you are. And that is more than enough.
Part 13. The Power of Detachment. Title: Still Waters Run Free. The Strength of Letting Go. Let's begin with a word that's often misunderstood: detachment. For many, it sounds cold, uncaring, like giving up or not feeling at all. But in truth, detachment, real detachment, is not the absence of emotion. It's the presence of something deeper. Stillness, stability, strength. It's not that you stop loving. It's that your love is no longer tied to conditions, no longer tethered to control. You begin to love with space, with trust, with freedom. You no longer need the world to behave a certain way for you to feel okay. That's not apathy, that's inner power. Let me ask you this. Have you ever cared so much about something or someone that it began to consume you? You check your phone every few minutes, waiting for their message. You replay a conversation, trying to perfect what you said. You obsess over the outcome. Will this work out? Will they stay? That's attachment. It disguises itself as care, but underneath, it's fear. Fear of loss. Fear of not being enough. Fear of uncertainty. And where there's fear, there's clinging. But love that clings isn't love. It's a bargain. I'll love you if you act how I need. I'll feel whole if you don't leave. I'll be peaceful if things go my way. But what if there's another way? What if love could be like a river, flowing, quiet, unstoppable? Whether someone stands by its bank to admire it or walks away without noticing, the river flows anyway. It doesn't stop, it doesn't prove, it just moves from its own source by its own nature. You are that river. Your peace doesn't need an audience. Your worth doesn't depend on applause. Your presence is enough. So what is detachment really? It's not disconnection. It's deeper connection without dependency. It's feeling everything, but not letting it drown you. It's caring fully without controlling the outcome.
It's letting others be who they are, while you stay rooted in who you are. Here's something I've learned through both heartbreak and healing. Attachment says, I need you to make me feel whole. Detachment says, I am whole and I can love you without needing you to complete me. It's not easy, because everything in our culture teaches us the opposite. We're told that closeness means constant access, that love means ownership, that care means emotional merging. But what if true closeness begins with space? What if the deepest love is born not in clinging, but in quiet understanding? I remember once watching a candle flicker in the dark. It gave light, even when no one was watching. It didn't ask to be seen. It simply existed, bright, still, and true. That's what detachment feels like. You stop performing, you stop chasing, and you begin to rest in yourself. And from that resting place, you begin to give more authentically, because you're no longer giving from emptiness, but from overflow. This doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we care from a place that doesn't collapse. We love with open palms, not clenched fists. We show up fully, but we don't fall apart when things change. We understand everything in life is impermanent. Feelings rise, people shift, seasons pass, and yet we remain. Like the mountain, like the river, like the candle. So how do we practice this detachment without going numb? We begin with awareness. Notice when your peace depends on something outside of you. Notice when your joy rises and falls with someone else's choices. Notice when your self-worth tightens around external approval. And then gently loosen your grip. Ask yourself, if this didn't go the way I hoped, could I still be okay? Not because it wouldn't hurt, but because you've made peace your baseline, not something you borrow from the world. One powerful exercise is this. When you find yourself clinging to a person, outcome, or idea, pause. Visualize holding it gently in your hands. Then slowly, in your mind's eye, open your palms. Let it breathe, let it float, let it go. Not to abandon it, but to allow it to live freely. Detachment is trust. Trust in the flow of life. Trust that what's meant for you won't need to be gripped. Trust that you are already enough, with or without the outcome. The more you trust, the less you need to control. The less you control, the more freedom you feel. And from that freedom, a deeper love arises. Not a love that says, stay so I feel safe, but a love that whispers, even if you go, I remain love. So today, if something feels heavy, if your heart is tangled in someone else's actions, or your peace is tied to things you can't predict, come back to yourself. Breathe. Feel the quiet strength that doesn't depend on anyone's permission. And remember, you are the river. You are the flame. You are the stillness beneath the noise. You don't need to be seen to keep flowing. You don't need to be held to stay whole. You don't need to be needed to feel enough, because you already are. Let go, not to lose, but to return, to yourself, to peace, to truth. This is the power of detachment.
Part 14. Pain as a Teacher. Title: The Wisdom Hidden in Pain. There's a question I used to ask myself. Maybe you've asked it too. Why does it have to hurt so much? We whisper it when the world feels too heavy, when relationships break, when dreams collapse, when everything we've leaned on suddenly disappears. In those moments, pain feels like punishment, like life has singled us out, like we're somehow broken. But what if pain wasn't here to punish you? What if pain was here to wake you up? There's a quiet truth that the Buddha taught, a truth that most of us only come to understand when life brings us to our knees.
Suffering is not the end of the path. It is the beginning. It's the crack where light enters, the fire that forges, the mirror that reveals who we really are beneath all the noise. I want to invite you to look at pain differently, not as something to avoid, but as something to listen to. Because pain doesn't just appear in your life randomly. It rises from something that needs your attention, a lesson unlearned, a truth unacknowledged, a wound unhealed. Like a wise teacher, it speaks not in words, but in sensation, silence, and stillness. The question is, are we willing to listen? There's an old metaphor I love. A piece of raw metal cannot become a sword unless it passes through fire. It must be heated, bent, shaped, and cooled over and over again. The fire doesn't destroy it, it reveals its strength. And so it is with us. Pain is the forge. It burns away illusion. It strips away ego. It invites us to let go of who we thought we were, so we can become who we're meant to be. I'm not saying it's easy. There are days when the grief is too loud, when the ache in your chest makes it hard to breathe, when you just want life to go back to the way it was, before the loss, the betrayal, the change. But the truth is, you're not meant to go back. Because the version of you that's emerging on the other side of this is someone wiser, someone softer, someone more awake. Look back at your life for a moment. Weren't your deepest transformations born from discomfort? Wasn't it heartbreak that taught you about boundaries? Wasn't it loss that helped you see what truly mattered? We don't grow from comfort. We grow from confrontation with our limits, our patterns, our illusions. Pain reveals what is false, so truth can rise. Sometimes it removes people, places, or identities we've clung to for too long. Not to destroy us, but to show us, you are not your roles. You are not your success. You are not your pain. You are the awareness witnessing it all. And from that awareness, wisdom is born. The pain you feel today could become the compassion you offer tomorrow. The rejection you survived might become the boundary that protects your peace. The silence you endured might teach you how to hear others more deeply. When we allow pain to speak, without running, without numbing, something extraordinary happens. We stop asking, "Why me?" and we begin asking, "What is this here to show me?" That shift is powerful. It turns victims into seekers. It turns wounds into gateways. It turns your story into medicine. But that transformation only begins when we stop fighting pain and start befriending it. So here's a gentle practice. Next time you feel that ache rising, pause. Instead of distracting yourself, sit with it. Close your eyes. Place your hand over your heart and say quietly, "I'm here. I'm listening." No judgment, no shame, just presence. You'll be surprised how pain softens when it's welcomed. It's not always asking to be fixed. Sometimes it's just asking to be felt. And through that feeling, through the fire, clarity emerges. There's a reason the lotus, a sacred symbol in Buddhism, grows only in muddy water. It doesn't bloom in perfection. It rises from darkness. And so do we. So if you're in the middle of something heavy right now, if the nights feel long and the days feel numb, know this. You are not being punished. You are being refined. You are not lost. You are becoming. Let the pain teach you. Let it carve wisdom into your bones. Let it strip away everything that is not truly you. You are not fragile. You are not falling apart. You are in the sacred process of transformation. Like fire to metal, like storm to sky, like darkness to dawn. Your pain is not the end of the story. It's the part where you start to awaken. And what comes next is something only the real you can live. Part 15. The Wisdom of Letting Go. Title: When It's Time to Release What Once Saved You. Let me tell you a story. It's an old Buddhist parable, but its truth is timeless. A man once needed to cross a river. The current was strong, the bridge long gone. So he spent hours gathering branches, tying rope, building a raft with his bare hands. Eventually, the raft carried him across. Exhausted but safe, he stood on the far bank. Then he looked at the raft, and something strange happened. He thought, "This raft saved my life. I can't just leave it behind." So he picked it up, tied it to his back, and carried it into the forest. At first, he didn't notice the weight. But as the path climbed higher, as the terrain turned rough, the raft became a burden, slowing him down, bruising his back, wearing him out. Eventually, he collapsed beneath it. Now let me ask you, what are you still carrying that once helped you, but now only holds you back? Sometimes we cling not to what hurts us, but to what used to help us. A relationship that once felt like home. A belief that once made you feel safe. A habit that once gave you comfort during chaos. We tell ourselves, this is part of who I am. But the truth is, what served you at one point in your journey may not serve who you are becoming. Like the raft, it had a purpose. It helped you survive the river. But once you've crossed, once you're on the other side, you don't need to carry it anymore. In fact, carrying it might be the very thing holding you back from your next step. Letting go doesn't mean what helped you was wrong. It means it's fulfilled its role. There's wisdom in honoring what was, and in releasing it when the time comes. But that's hard, isn't it? Because we get attached to our rafts. We mistake the tools for the journey itself. We say things like, "I've always done it this way. I used to believe this kept me strong. I don't know who I am without this." But the deeper you grow, the more you realize. Healing is not about accumulating more. It's about shedding what's no longer necessary. It's not about fixing every part of yourself. It's about freeing yourself from the weight that's no longer yours to carry. This is the wisdom of letting go. It's not reckless. It's not ungrateful. It's not forgetting. It's choosing to move forward with both hands open. Ask yourself, what belief am I holding on to that's keeping me small? What story have I told myself for years that no longer reflects who I am? What raft am I still dragging long after the river is gone? Sometimes the raft looks like guilt, or responsibility for someone else's happiness, or the pressure to keep proving yourself over and over. But none of those are the essence of who you are. You are not your coping mechanisms. You are not your survival strategies. You are not your old identities. You are the one who survived. You are the one who crossed the river. And now it's time to walk freely. There's a quiet kind of power in letting go. It's not loud or dramatic. It happens in the small moments. When you finally stop chasing someone who never saw you. When you exhale the shoulds and musts that were never truly yours. When you gently say goodbye to the version of yourself that was only built for survival. Letting go isn't giving up. It's giving back. Returning the raft to the river. Trusting the ground beneath you now. Trusting yourself now. I want to share something that changed my life. You don't have to carry everything just because you once needed it. You can bless what helped you and still set it down. You can thank the raft and still walk forward without it. And sometimes it's only when your hands are empty that life can place something new in them. So if today you're feeling heavy, if the journey feels harder than it needs to be, maybe it's time to pause and ask, what am I still carrying that I no longer need to hold? Let it go with love. Let it go with gratitude. Let it go so you can grow. Because the path ahead isn't paved for those burdened by the past. It opens for those who walk lightly, those who trust life enough to keep moving, those who know. You don't need to carry the raft once you've learned how to swim.
Part 16. The Hardest Forgiveness. Title: The Quiet Art of Forgiving Yourself. There's a strange paradox in the human heart. We are often quick to forgive others,
a friend who hurt us, a partner who failed us, even a stranger who disappointed us. But when it comes to ourselves, we hold on. We replay our mistakes. We punish ourselves over and over again with the sharpest voice of all, our own. Why is it that we show more compassion to others than we do to ourselves? I want to begin today with a simple image. Imagine a small child in front of you. They were holding a glass of water, too big for their tiny hands. And as you watched, the glass slipped, hit the floor, and shattered. The child looks up at you, eyes wide, lips trembling, already bracing for punishment. Now ask yourself, would you shout at that child? Would you say, "You're so stupid, you always mess things up, why can't you do anything right?" Of course not. Most of us would kneel down, gently wipe the tears, and say, "It's okay, it was just a glass, you're still learning." But here's the deeper question. Why don't we speak to ourselves the same way? Because somewhere along the way, we were taught that self-forgiveness is weakness, that holding ourselves accountable means never letting go, that being better means being hard on ourselves. But what if that's not true? What if true growth doesn't come from judgment, but from compassion? In Buddhism, there is a deep understanding that all beings are shaped by causes and conditions. We are not separate from our environment, our wounds, our past, or our patterns. That doesn't excuse our choices, but it does explain them. When you begin to see yourself not as broken, but as someone who is becoming, forgiveness starts to take root. Not the loud kind, not the dramatic kind, but the quiet, steady kind. The kind that whispers, "I did the best I could with what I knew and who I was at the time." Let that settle for a moment. I did the best I could. Maybe you didn't know how to love back then. Maybe you didn't have the tools to choose better. Maybe you were scared, or overwhelmed, or simply human. Can you look at your past self, not with shame, but with understanding? One of the most profound moments in healing is when we stop fighting the past and start embracing the one who lived through it. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It doesn't mean saying it was okay. It simply means you no longer carry the weight of punishing yourself for something you cannot change. And here's something important to remember. You are not the person who made that mistake. You are the person who learned from it. The very fact that you feel guilt, that you're watching this, that you're reflecting at all, is proof of your growth. But healing can't blossom in a battlefield. And right now, many of us are waging war inside our own hearts. It's time to lay down the weapons. It's time to choose kindness. If you've been harsh with yourself lately, here's a gentle practice. Close your eyes, place a hand on your chest, and whisper the words you would say to a dear friend who's hurting. I forgive you. You were doing your best. You are allowed to be human. Repeat it as often as you need, until it doesn't feel like a lie, but a remembering. Because at the core, forgiveness is not something you achieve. It's something you allow. And self-compassion is not self-indulgence. It's self-recognition. A return to the part of you that always deserved love, even before the apology, even before the improvement. Think of a river flowing gently over rocks. The water doesn't scold the stones for being in its way. It simply keeps moving, with grace, with persistence, with peace. Your heart can do the same. You can move forward without forgetting, but also without clinging, without denying, but also without drowning. Forgive the version of you who didn't know better. Thank them for surviving. Then gently let them rest. Because you don't need to carry shame in order to grow. You don't need to keep bleeding to prove you've been wounded. You are allowed to begin again. So today, offer yourself the kindness you've given so freely to others. Talk to yourself like you would talk to that little child. You are still learning. You are still healing. And that is more than enough. Part 17. The Beauty in Your Cracks. Title: You Were Never Broken, Just Becoming. Have you ever looked at a scar on your body, a small mark from childhood, an old injury, or something you barely even notice now? And have you realized that scar is no longer painful, but it is a part of you? It tells a story of something you survived, of something your body, your spirit, healed from. But what if the same could be true for your emotional wounds? What if the parts of you you've tried to hide, your cracks, your mistakes, your moments of breaking, are not flaws to be erased, but the very things that make you whole? There's an ancient Japanese art called kintsugi. It means golden joinery. When a bowl or cup is broken, instead of discarding it, the artist repairs the cracks with lacquer mixed with powdered gold. They don't try to hide the damage, they highlight it, they celebrate it. And in doing so, the object becomes more valuable, more unique, more beautiful than it was before. Now imagine, what if we treated ourselves the same way? What if the places where we cracked under pressure, where life broke us open, where we thought we were ruined, were actually the places where the light could shine through? In a world that constantly pushes us to fix ourselves, to become perfect, polished, presentable, there's something quietly revolutionary about simply saying, "This is who I am." Wounds, healing, gold-filled cracks, and all. Self-acceptance isn't passive, it's powerful. It's not about giving up on growth. It's about no longer growing from a place of shame. Because when you constantly believe you're not enough, you live your life trying to prove your worth. But when you accept yourself, truly, deeply, gently, you create space for love. Not just from others, from yourself. And that is where all healing begins. The truth is, we don't need to become someone else to be lovable. We just need to remember who we are beneath the layers of guilt, perfectionism, and self-judgment. Ask yourself, what part of me have I been trying to hide or fix for years? What if that very part is where my soul is learning how to love? You don't need to be flawless. You need to be honest. You don't need to be polished. You need to be present. And you don't need to be someone else. You just need to come home to yourself. The journey of self-acceptance is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. It's choosing to wake up, look in the mirror, and instead of criticizing your reflection, you soften your gaze and say, "I am still here," and that's enough. It's letting your story be seen, not just the chapters you're proud of, but the pages that were torn, messy, rewritten in tears. Because healing isn't erasing the pain, it's integrating it. It's saying, "This happened, it shaped me, and now I choose to walk forward not in spite of it, but because of it." Like kintsugi, we don't become beautiful by hiding our brokenness. We become beautiful when we let our gold, our compassion, our wisdom, our depth fill the cracks. The ones who shine the most are often the ones who've shattered and then chosen to rise slowly and lovingly, one golden thread at a time. So today, I invite you, stop seeing your wounds as proof that something's wrong with you. Start seeing them as reminders that you've lived, you've felt, you've grown. There's a kind of love that begins only when you stop trying to be anything else and start being you. Not a version you think people will approve of, not a self improved just to be loved, but the you that's been quietly waiting beneath all the noise to be embraced. You are not broken. You are becoming. And your cracks? They're not weaknesses. They're the places where your story is turning into art. Part 18. Healing is not a destination. Title: You're not behind, you're becoming. Have you ever thought to yourself, when will I finally be healed? As if healing were some final stop on a map, a place you reach, unpack your bags, and say, "Finally, I'm done. No more pain, no more setbacks." But real healing doesn't look like that. It looks like a river, always flowing, sometimes gentle, sometimes rough. Sometimes it winds slowly through quiet valleys. Other times it crashes through stones and steep cliffs. But it never stops moving. And neither do you. Healing is not a straight line. It's not a checklist. It's not a linear journey where every day is better than the last. It's a rhythm, a dance between remembering and forgetting, between falling and rising, between feeling lost and then realizing you're still exactly where you're meant to be. There will be days when you feel full of light, clear, open, grounded. And then, just when you thought you were finally done with the past, you'll be triggered again. You'll feel old wounds reopen, old doubts resurface. And in those moments, it's easy to feel like a failure, to think, I thought I was over this. I thought I had healed. Why am I back here again? But the truth is, you're not back at the beginning. You're meeting an old emotion with a new level of awareness. You're walking the same riverbank, but now with different feet. That's what healing is. Not the erasure of pain, but the deepening of your capacity to meet it with gentleness. Not the disappearance of all wounds, but the strengthening of your heart to carry them with grace. In Buddhism, there's no concept of perfection, only awakening. And awakening doesn't happen once. It happens in every moment we return to ourselves, in every breath we take that says, even now, I choose presence. So if you've been feeling like you're stuck, if you've been judging yourself for not being healed enough, this is your reminder. You are not behind. You are becoming. You are flowing forward even when it feels like you're standing still. Even the river has moments when it pools in stillness before it rushes again. Even the tide returns before it moves back out. And even you, in your pauses, in your regressions, in your silent seasons, are still becoming something sacred. So give yourself permission to move at your own rhythm, to let healing be messy, beautiful, slow, to let today's progress look different from yesterday's. Because this isn't a race, and there is no final arrival. The truth is, the more we chase a finish line, the more we miss the quiet miracles unfolding right now. That moment you chose to breathe instead of react, that's healing. That day you got up, even when your heart felt heavy, that's healing. That time you forgave yourself for breaking down, that too is healing. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be done. You just have to keep showing up, again and again, as the river does, flowing forward, not to reach a destination, but to live the journey fully. So next time you feel like you're not where you should be, remember this. You are not a project to be completed. You are a presence to be lived. And healing? It's not a point you reach. It's a path you walk, with soft steps, deep breaths, and a heart that never stops learning how to love.
Part 19. Mindfulness and Acceptance Are the Keys. Title: You Don't Have to Fix It, Just See It Clearly. What if I told you that peace doesn't come from solving everything? That healing isn't about finally getting rid of the pain, but about seeing it for what it is, clearly, without judgment. You see, we've been conditioned to fight with reality, to resist what is, to think, this shouldn't be happening, it's not supposed to feel like this. But mindfulness offers us a very different path. It doesn't ask us to change the moment. It simply invites us to be with it, fully, quietly, honestly. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to push away a painful emotion, only to find it keeps coming back, stronger each time? That's because suppression is not release. Denial is not peace. The more we resist what's happening, the more we suffer. Buddhism has a simple but profound teaching on this. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. In other words, the pain is part of life.
But how we relate to that pain, that's where our freedom begins. Mindfulness is not about positive thinking or pretending everything is fine. It's the opposite. It's about seeing what is, without needing it to be different. Noticing the ache in your chest, the tension in your jaw, the sadness behind your smile. And instead of trying to fix it, just being with it. Like sitting beside a friend who's grieving. You don't say, "Cheer up." You simply offer presence. That's the medicine your own soul is longing for. Not more pressure, not more fixing, just presence. Because when we stop running from the moment, something shifts. It's subtle but powerful. The moment we say, "Yes, this is what I'm feeling right now. Yes, this is how it hurts." Something inside begins to soften, to settle, to breathe again. You're not broken for feeling pain. You're human. And real healing begins not when we get rid of pain, but when we allow it to exist without resistance. This is what mindfulness teaches us. To be the witness, not the judge. To observe, not control. To feel without drowning. But there's one more layer, acceptance. And this part is often misunderstood. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean you like what's happening. It simply means you stop fighting with what's already here. Because here's the truth. You don't have to agree with reality for it to exist. And the more we resist it, the more power we give it over our peace. But when we accept, truly accept, the moment as it is, we step into our power again. We reclaim our energy. We open a door to clarity. Think of a snow globe. When shaken, it's cloudy and chaotic. But when you set it down, the snow settles, and you can see clearly through the glass. That's what mindfulness and acceptance do. They don't erase the storm. They just help you see through it. And when you change the way you see, you change the way you experience. It's not magic, it's awareness. It's why two people can go through the same event, a breakup, a loss, a disappointment, and come out with two completely different emotional realities. One resists, one accepts. One clings, one breathes. So ask yourself, right now, what are you resisting? What emotion, memory, or reality are you trying to push away? What would happen if, just for this moment, you let it be here without pushing it away? What if you whispered to it, "I see you, you're allowed to exist"? Would that be weakness, or would that be the bravest thing you've ever done? You see, real courage isn't in fixing everything. It's in facing everything, gently, honestly, and with your whole heart. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, pause. Take one mindful breath. Place your hand on your chest if it helps, and say to yourself, "This is what's happening now, and I can meet it with presence." That one breath, that one shift in how you see, it's enough to begin healing. You don't have to wait for your life to become perfect. You don't need all the answers. You just need one sacred willingness to see the moment clearly, to stop fighting and start allowing, to trade control for compassion. Because peace isn't found in a perfect life. It's found in a present heart. So, if you're tired of running, tired of resisting, tired of trying to get over things just to move on, try this instead. Sit with it, breathe through it, accept what is so that transformation can begin. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're exactly where the healing begins. And that is more than enough.
Part 20. Finding Inner Peace and Purpose. Title: Peace Doesn't Arrive, It's Grown. Let me ask you a quiet question. Have you ever waited for your life to finally calm down so you could feel peace? Maybe you've thought, if I could just fix this relationship, if my job could be more stable, if I lived somewhere quieter. And yet, even when things do settle,
peace seems to slip through our fingers again. That's because peace isn't found in perfect conditions. It's not something you arrive at after checking all the boxes. It's something you plant, you water, you cultivate inside. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." And that isn't just a poetic idea. It's a radical shift in how we see the world. Because if you believe peace depends on things outside of you, then every change in life becomes a threat to your peace. But if peace is something you carry within, then no matter how the winds blow, your roots can remain steady. Let me offer you a simple image. Imagine a seed. You can't force it to bloom by yelling at it. You can't rush it by tugging at its leaves. What you can do is create the right conditions. You water it, give it sunlight. You don't blame the seed if it takes time. In the same way, inner peace isn't something that shows up suddenly. It's something you grow with practice, presence, and patience. But here's the part we often forget. That seed of peace already lives inside you. Yes, you. Not some future version of you who has everything figured out. Not the version of you who meditates for an hour every day or never loses their temper. The you sitting right here, with all your questions, all your imperfections. The seed is already there. But like any seed, it can't grow in noise, chaos, and constant self-judgment. It grows in stillness, in attention, in kindness, and in one of the most overlooked places of all, acceptance. You don't have to achieve peace. You have to let it in. You have to stop running, stop performing, stop trying to earn your own worth, and just breathe. Because here's the quiet truth. Peace doesn't mean the storm is gone. It means you're no longer tossed around by it. It means you found your anchor, not in certainty, but in presence. Think of the people you admire most, the ones who radiate calm. Chances are, it's not because they've avoided pain. It's because they've met it, sat with it, learned to listen to it, instead of fear it. They've discovered that peace isn't the absence of difficulty, but the presence of clarity. So, how do we begin to grow this peace? Start where you are. Right now, wherever you're listening from. Pause. Notice your breath. Feel your body. Notice the sounds around you. Don't try to change anything. Just notice. That's how peace begins, not in grand gestures, but in simple awareness. And then begin to ask, what stories am I telling myself that keep me from peace? Do I believe I'm not allowed to rest until everything is fixed? Do I think peace is something only other people are worthy of? These beliefs are like stones placed on top of a seed. No wonder it struggles to grow. But when we remove those stones with compassion, not judgment, we give our inner peace the space to breathe again. And when you begin to water that peace, something amazing happens. You stop waiting for life to be perfect. You start showing up for life as it is. You stop tying your joy to things you can't control. You start recognizing that peace has always been closer than you thought. Like a bird singing quietly in the background. You just needed to stop and listen. And from that peace, purpose begins to emerge. Not the kind of purpose that's about proving yourself. Not the kind that's tied to applause, promotions, or perfection. But a quieter purpose. A purpose rooted in presence, in connection, in love. Because when you live from peace, you stop asking, what do I need to do to be enough? And you start asking, what can I offer from the overflow of my presence? So, if you're still waiting for the world to slow down, for someone to give you permission, for your to-do list to finally be empty, here it is. This is your permission slip. Not to do more, but to be more here, to stop chasing peace and start growing it. Because you are the soil, you are the water, you are the sunlight your own soul has been waiting for. And today can be the day you begin again, not with force, not with guilt, but with one breath, one pause, one sacred decision, to stop looking out there and come home, here, because peace has always known your name. You've just been busy, listening to everything else, but now you're ready to hear it again.
Part 21. Adversity is not punishment, it's a lesson. Have you ever whispered to yourself in a moment of deep pain, "Why is this happening to me?" It's a quiet cry we've all felt, in loss, in disappointment, in betrayal. When life doesn't go the way we hoped, it's so easy to believe we're being punished. But what if adversity isn't punishment at all? What if, instead, it's a teacher? There's an old Buddhist story, simple but profound. A grieving mother came to the Buddha carrying her lifeless child. In her heartbreak, she begged him, "Please bring my baby back." And the Buddha, with deep compassion, said, "I will help you, but first, bring me a single mustard seed from a home that has never known death." The woman searched. She knocked on doors. She cried with strangers. But every home she entered told the same story. Yes, we too have lost someone. And slowly she understood. Her pain was not unique. It was not punishment. It was part of the human path. You see, suffering isolates us, but wisdom reunites us. When we realize that pain is universal, not a personal failure, we soften. We stop blaming ourselves for being human. Adversity doesn't arrive to destroy us. It comes to reveal something inside us, something we might not have seen otherwise. Think about it. Hasn't some of your deepest growth come after your hardest moments? Maybe a heartbreak taught you self-worth. Maybe a loss taught you presence. Maybe hitting rock bottom taught you humility and the strength to rise again. We don't get to choose our pain, but we always get to choose our response. This is where real transformation begins, not when life is easy, but when we meet life as it is. Because adversity doesn't mean life is broken, it means life is honest. And in that honesty, we're invited to show up, not as victims, but as students. So instead of asking, "Why me?" what if we asked, "What is life trying to teach me here?" It's not always a comfortable question, but it's always a powerful one. We tend to think healing comes from removing pain, but often healing begins when we stop resisting it, when we look it in the eye and say, "I'm listening." Because pain, when honored, becomes insight, and insight, when practiced, becomes wisdom, and wisdom, that's what frees us. Adversity is like fire. It can burn you, yes, but it can also forge you, temper you, refine you. Just like metal becomes stronger when exposed to flame, so too do we discover our strength, not in the absence of challenge, but in the presence of it. And maybe the point of life was never to avoid all storms, but to learn how to dance in the rain. So if you're walking through something heavy right now, loss, change, confusion, this is your reminder. You are not being punished. You are being shaped. There is meaning in this moment, even if you can't see it yet. Even the darkest night ends in dawn. And even now, a new version of you is being born, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. So don't rush past your struggle. Don't silence your sorrow. Listen to what it's here to show you. Because sometimes the most painful moments lead to the most beautiful awakenings. Inner freedom and the ongoing journey. So here you are, after all the letting go, after all the quiet realizations, after all the tears you didn't post online. You're still standing. And maybe, just maybe, you're starting to realize something powerful. You are no longer a prisoner of the past. Yes, the memories are still there. Yes, some scars still ache when touched, but you're no longer bound by them. You are no longer living inside the story of what happened. You're living in the truth of who you've become because of it. Healing, you see, is not a destination. It's not a box we check off or a finish line we cross. It's a quiet unfolding, a spiral, sometimes soft, sometimes sharp. There will be days you feel free and days you feel fragile again. But even when it's slow, if you're gentle, if you're present, you are always moving forward. Like the tide that keeps returning to the shore. Like a tree that still grows, even when no one is watching. And somewhere along the way, something else shifts. You stop searching for someone else to make you feel whole. You begin to understand. You were never broken, just covered in layers of pain that weren't yours to carry. You don't need another person to complete you. You are already complete. The peace you've been seeking, it was never in someone's approval. It was never in being chosen. It was never in the perfect life, the perfect body, the perfect love story. It was always within you. And here's the most beautiful part. When you heal, not perfectly, but honestly, you become a light. Not because you're trying to fix others, but because your presence becomes permission for others to heal too. You become that calm friend who doesn't panic when someone cries. You become the gentle soul who listens without needing to solve. You become the reminder that it's possible to feel pain and still be at peace. So, if you're still in the middle of your journey, that's okay. The middle is sacred. Take your time. Rest when needed. Cry when it's honest. Smile when you can. And above all, trust that even the smallest step forward is still forward. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to stay open. Because when we walk the path of healing with presence and compassion, we don't just change our own lives. We change the way we show up for the world. And maybe that's the real purpose of it all. Not to avoid pain, not to chase perfection, but to live with a heart that stays soft, even when the world is hard. To live in a way that whispers to others, you are not alone, and healing is possible. And if this journey has spoken to something inside you, if these words have met you in a quiet place, then I gently invite you to stay connected. Breathe deeply, stay connected, and let's stay on this journey together. Subscribe for more reflections on healing, mindfulness, and inner transformation. Leave a comment below. Share where you are on your journey. Sometimes, simply being heard is the first step to being free. Your presence here matters. Thank you for walking this path, softly, bravely, truthfully.